Ready to go?
Yep, I'm ready.
Let's get this show on the road. What's up, Eric? How's everything going? It's a little bit different of a background than Daytona.
Yeah, it's different and different even from other weeks too. I'm actually doing the show from my house today instead of my office because, excuse me, we had ice overnight, so our kids had 2 hour delays
Really?
from school. So I just dropped the oldest off and came back here to do the show.
Wow.
So yeah, different than sunny Daytona,
Yeah.
and I got icy outside my window here. So yeah, fun stuff.
It's warm in North Carolina. It's been warm the last few days. No ice for us.
Yeah,
It's been like in
yeah.
the 60s.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually warm when I came back here from Daytona, and then this is what happened last week when I left. It did this, and then it got warmer. Next week looks better here, but just got to get through today's ice.
No ice in California for the race on Sunday. Let's see. So we had no race last year.
Nope.
And they've been racing what? So they changed to one race a year back in 2011. And then, of course, no racing last year. And a couple of things I noticed with your track trend notes from last year even, which is the difference between the 2 mile tracks, Michigan and Fontana, is the fact that Michigan's got a newer surface. Is that still the case?
Yeah.
Is Fontana still an older surface?
It is. It's that's the main difference. I mean, if you look at them side by side, you're like, that's the exact same track. And it was built by the exact same company. Penske, when this happened, like he took ownership of both, and then since he's sold, but it was designed to be that way. One's in California, one's in Michigan. But since Michigan's been repaved, where Fontana is still the original track.
Is that
surface,
good or
so
bad for the racing?
I think it's good because it gives you more lanes. Where Michigan's more or less, it's newly paved. The fast way around the bottom lane. This, you have character. You've got bumps. I mean, it was really, the backstretch was really bumpy. I've heard they patched those bumps because of this car. We saw Daytona how bouncy it was. Fontana's always been bouncy, that backstretch. So I heard they patched those to kind of grind it and smooth it out. But the turns are still their age. You got multiple lanes. You can find one to race on. So I think it helps. I think Fontana will be a better, should be. We don't know. It's a new,
That's true. New car.
Package. They've never raced this before. Yeah. New car. We truly do not know what it's going to be like. And I think that unknown helps. I mean, look, this is the first week we're going to have of this new practice qualifying.
Yeah,
format.
That's true.
So that also, I think it's only 15, 20 minutes of practice per the group. So it's not like it's designed. You're not going to make many changes. You may know what not to do, but it's an in-pound race. So the small tweaks that you can make between practice and qualifying, it's not like you can go to sleep and like, oh, I'm going to wake up Sunday morning and make these changes and I know what not to do. No, you don't have enough time. It's an in-pound race.
Well, I think it should be interesting because if we look at what happened with the last time they were here in 2020, Bowman dominated practice, and I forget where. I think he started third, maybe. I can't forget where he started.
Yeah, he had a great.
He had a great weekend, and it showed, and he won the race. So will that be the case this weekend? Because we were getting so used to giving our picks early before practice and qualifying the last year or so. But will that change? That's going to be interesting. Will we see now drivers that are going to have really good Saturday practice and qualifying, and all of a sudden, now the odds obviously change. There's no question about that. That's what you have to decide whether or not you want to take the chance and make your picks before practice and qualifying. Could be good, could be bad. But that's why I think we talk about this a lot with the IndyCar, but even now with practice, because now that we're doing practice again in NASCAR, is if you have a driver that has pretty big odds, and we can even talk about someone like, say, a Kurt Busch or a Keselowski or a Reddick or a Harvick or a Bowman at 14-1. Those guys, if they go out and have a really good day on Saturday, those odds, especially for maybe a Bowman because he won, or Logano because his reputation, and even Keselowski because his reputation, those odds are going to be cut in half.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a good race. And I wrote about this in 2020. And I have in my 5 burning questions for tomorrow is long run pace or short run. And we don't know that answer yet. The teams are going to have to guess. That was a common guesswork theme 2020 and prior to Fontana because you had 3 practice sessions. you could figure out, well, is there going to be a late race restart, or is it going to be a long run to the finish? Do I want to set my car up for a short run speed, which would be better qualifying, or do I want to set it for a long run pace to where maybe it doesn't have that short burst, but the car comes alive as the run goes on? We don't know this weekend. You don't have the luxury of practice. You do, but it's not very long to figure out. So, yeah, there may be some guys like, you know what? I just want the track position. I don't care about long run pace. I'm going to go out and spend my few practice laps of trying to figure out how to make this car fast, and I don't care about the long run. And like you said, it could be a Kurt Busch. Now he went from 20 to 1 to 10 to 1, but maybe somebody like Kyle Larson, who's 4 to 1. Granted, it's Kyle Larson. It's a bad example. It may not change much,
right.
but let's just say
he's the only one, and it won't change.
Let's
much.
just say he qualifies 25th.
Nobody cares.
Maybe you can get him for 6 to 1, but so. It probably won't change for him. But we could use a Kyle Busch, for example. Maybe 8 to 1 becomes 12 to 1. Maybe he flip flops with Logano, who's 14 to 1. So that's the kind of stuff. But it's so early. We don't know what this is going to, and that's Chase Elliott was just on NASCAR radio, and I don't know what to expect. I mean, this is the first time we've really done this qualifying or practice qualifying format. We haven't been to this track since 2020. We don't even know what the future of this track's going to be, because originally it was supposed to be torn down and being a short track. Then they talked about, well, maybe we won't. Maybe we don't have the resources. It's in California. Maybe we leave it as is. And then you see what the Busch Clash did, and now they started talking, well, maybe we do want to do a short track. So nobody knows the future is going to look like for this track, let alone this weekend. So it's wide open, which is why when we get to the odds, I feel like the three of us all went Larson, but there's also plenty of other room to play with because you don't know, and it opened up better odds. I feel like Daytona type odds for some of these guys.
Let's see. There was actually, if we just look at the trends, Dan Stevenson giving me a call here. Yeah, we're going to be doing our golf show real soon. Matter of fact, I don't know if you were hearing all that stuff about Phil Mickelson in the news.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so we're talking about, because we were going to start next week. Well, we were supposed to start this week is the Florida swing. Then we were like, well, now it's kind of late in the week. Let's start next week, and then we can kind of talk about Phil and all that kind of stuff. But the news is so big on Phil right now that's what that call is probably about. Is maybe we should do the show today.
It makes sense. So, yeah, you might want to.
Yeah. Okay, so the last 4 winners at Fontana started in the top 4. So once again, qualifying probably going to matter a little bit. Maybe. Again, it's a new car, so maybe, but we would think.
The past, yes. We just don't know right now, but if you go off the past, yeah, absolutely.
And Ford, though, just 1 win in the last 13. And that was Keselowski in 2015, which, by the way, happens to be one of the drivers, one of the long shot drivers, the few long shot drivers that we actually picked. So there you go. I mean, is that, again, that does matter to me a little bit, but not so much that I'm not going to put good money on Ryan Blaney, which I did.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I kind of went.
Well, Logano too.
Logano, Blaney. It's. I mean, yeah, they once in 11 races they've won, and it's just like, wow. But you look at Daytona, and they dominated. I mean, every practice, obviously qualifying was different because it's single car. The duels, the race. But we knew Ford had to. They're always strong on super speedway. So it's like, well, wait a minute. Did that translate? They've not been good here. Is that going to mean they're not going to be good?
Well, if we talk, look, I mean, just looking at Michigan, because that's the racetrack that we want to compare. And for instance, Ryan Blaney won Michigan last year.
Yeah. And if you remember, you got a good push. You got a good draft push on the restart. So, yeah. And again, Michigan was repaved. This is different. I mean, because you look at 2020, Chevy was good. Alex Bowman, if I remember right, going into that weekend, he was like 15 to 1 or 18 to 1 or something like that. And I thought it was interesting that he's the defending winner, the last guy to win that race, and he's 14 to 1. And his teammate is 4 to 1. It's like that's so it was like a no-brainer not to throw money his way. I mean, he's the last guy to win there. And if not a whole lot changes, we don't know. Nothing has been guaranteed. Why not 14 to 1? I thought was maybe a little disrespectful to Bowman, but why not?
Absolutely, you have to.
He's the last guy to win there, and he dominated that weekend, if you remember right. So you just don't know. You really don't at this point.
Going into, let's see, let's go into our picks here, and so the 3 drivers that we all took, and obviously CJ, as we said last week, CJ will not be on the air with us every week, but he will still be a part of everything we're doing, picks and fantasy and so forth, and he's already off to a good start with Austin Cindric as far as his fantasy team. And so let's see. But the 3 drivers we all took were Larson, Kyle Busch, and Joe Logano.
Yep.
Larson is like a no-brainer for me, and pretty much for all of us. It was almost like we needed to take Larson to hedge our bet. I mean, it's not like
Exactly.
It's not like we didn't put like 60 or 70 of our allotted $100 on him, and like, oh, we're gonna throw all our money on Kyle Larson. And it was like, okay, if Larson wins, we're gonna get our money back and maybe even make a couple of bucks. And that's the way I feel as well. And then Kyle, out of the 3 8-1 drivers we all took. And I think that makes a lot of sense because of the fact that if you look at Kyle's resume at Michigan, it's pretty strong because you take a look at his overall 50% mark of 22 races, and 50% of the time he's finished in the top 5. That is pretty impressive, with including 4 wins.
Yeah, because if you compare, you got the 3 drivers, and I was a little shocked CJ took Elliott and Hamlin, which I get it. They're 8-1, but Elliott's got 1 career Fontana top 5. Hamlin's got 1 top 5 since 2009. But you give me Kyle Busch, who has been pretty dominant there, as you said. I mean, you could look at Kyle Busch's odds and then try to decipher through, like, well, wait a minute, what's the difference that stands out? And he's got 6 top 3 finishes in his last 8 there. Yep. So compared to those 2, and honestly, like you said, I hedged with Larson. I should have probably doubled what I paid for Larson to throw it on Busch, but I already have on Busch with what he's done there. And I mean, he's got 9 straight top 8 finishes and 13 top 3s in his last 14 tries there. He's a 6-time winner in the Xfinity Series. So why not? You add it all up. It could be a good weekend for him. And the last time Toyota was down there, and he still finished in the top 3. So I have a feeling they know what to do better, and Toyota's dominated there. You take out 2020. So, yeah, for 8-1 for the same as Elliott and Hamlin, I sided that direction.
You also put some. You were the only one to put a little bit of money on Truex, and there's a couple of sides to Truex, and that is the fact that if you take a look at it, he only has 2 top 5s and 20 starts, but one came in 2018 when he won the race. So that was just a couple years ago. And he actually led 125 laps in that win, but he was on the pole. And the other negative thing is he's never won at Michigan in 31 starts, but he has 10 top 5s at Michigan. So maybe not a bad fantasy driver, Martin Truex Jr. You might want to think about that. But again, proof that, hey, you know what? If someone qualifies and practices well that you weren't really thinking about this week, think about it.
Exactly. And he's, like I said, Toyota's been good there. And out of his last 4 Fontana tries, he's got 3 top 8s. So, like, he's always, Fontana and Michigan, he's always around the top 5, top 6. So, knowing he's probably going to be there, he could qualify up front. And prior to 2019, he said he led 125 laps. The year before, he led 73 laps. He's led at least 3 laps in 5 of his last 6 at Fontana. So I thought 10-1. If he was like 6-1, 7-1, I may not have. But for 10-1, it was like, why not? Because he could end up 5 or 6-1 if he qualifies on the pole. So you just don't know. But yeah, for those odds, I felt it's kind of a no-brainer.
Now the 2 of us, we both went with Blaney at 12-1, Bowman and Logano at 14-1. Now, your strategy this week was basically, it's too early in the season. I just want to make my money back. I don't want to lose also. I don't want to lose $100 if I can avoid it. Let's wait and see how things go. For me, there were a few drivers that I went for it, and the biggest one was Blaney, as I said. Kyle was the other, and then we'll get to the other 2 long shots in a second. But Blaney was definitely it. And then Bowman and Logano, I was kind of like you. I'm kind of hedging my bet with both of them. And again, how do you not go with Bowman? He's coming off the win here. And Logano, 7th or better in 5 of his last 6 races at Fontana, including a runner-up in 2019. Even though he's never won there, he does have 3 wins at Michigan.
Yeah, he's usually good there. And you're getting him at 14-1 and like Blaney at 12-1.
That's the thing. There's not a lot of difference between the 8-1s and the 14-1s. So why wouldn't we go with the 14-1s?
Exactly. That's why I looked. I just kind of compared him. I just like same. I took Larson out like 4-1. He's leaps and he's double or half their odds. So like that's the money back guy. Maybe make a few, and then the rest I just threw him kind of in a group. And I just looked at Elliott hadn't done much. Hamlin hasn't done much. None of us chose Byron, who hasn't done much. And then I look at the bottom half of the group, and I'm like, oh, you could probably see maybe a sleeper. But though, if you throw your money right, at least, like you said, that was my strategy. I don't want to fall after losing last week. I don't want to lose another $100. I'm like, well, maybe I can at least get a winner from this, and I could choose them all, and let's eliminate some guys that I feel. And then you look at Blaney, and I'm like, 12-1, 9th and 17, 8th and 18, 5th and 19. In 2020, he was running second, and he cut a tire.
Led 54
he
laps.
was the second best car. Yeah. So he was right there in the top three, arguably the top threat to Bowman that day. Like, what? And you're giving him for us for 12-1. I thought maybe he should have been 7-1 or 8-1. Like,
he will be if he practices and qualifies well.
He definitely will. And then the only thing that I was looking at was, well, there's the Ford factor, and now I've already accumulated Logano and Blaney, and it's like, but that may not be a factor. For those odds, got to go with him. So I went with him.
And then you also went with Harvick, who has 3 runner-ups at this track, 1 win in 27 starts. He had a runner-up finish in 2016 when he led 142 laps, but other than that, he really hasn't had a great resume overall at this racetrack. Again, just 1 win out of 27, but he's a Ford, but he's 15-1.
Yeah, he's great at Michigan. I mean, you feel like he's the runner-up king of Michigan, and he's runner-up 15 and 16. He's got 3 top 4s in his last 6 there. He just hasn't led a lap in his last 4. But you're handing me a driver, a past Cup champion at 15-1, and I feel like some of that is due to his struggles last year. That we don't know if that's going to correlate to the struggles this year. I thought he ran a great race in Daytona. He was, if not for Larson pushing him and wrecking him into the tribal, he had a good shot to win the Daytona 500. So I'm like, 15-1. I'm going to take it. So, yeah, I threw some money his way. Just he could win or he could finish 10th. You don't know. And for 15-1, why not?
And the only other long shots that we took money on was the only one to put money on Reddick, and then at 16-1, and then I put money on Keselowski. DJ did as well. You stood away from Reddick and Keselowski. You put a few bucks on Kurt Busch. Again, Busch has got 3 wins at Michigan. He has a decent overall history at Fontana. Keselowski has 6 straight top 10s at Fontana, and he's got a win as well. Again, he's a Ford, though. And with Reddick, as far as I was concerned, it was almost, look, 11's not bad in his first appearance. And I'll be honest with you, it was also, you know what? I got to put one driver in this race who's never won a Cup race before. Cindric did it last week.
Yep.
Just in case we get off to, because we got off, it happened last year. So just in case we get off to one of those starts where we get some long shots, win the first few weeks of the season, Reddick will be my never won a Cup race long shot.
And he was looking good in Daytona. And we talked about this could be a breakout year for him. So I almost did that with him. But I threw it through Kurt just because he's got 5 top 6s in his last 8 there. He was 3rd in 2020. Like 23-11, that would happen. Kurt Busch could. I think I'd put a lot of pressure on Bubba if Kurt Busch comes out and wins. But 20-1 went that direction, and yeah, Keselowski. I looked at it. I thought hard about him. I mean, like he's got 6 straight top 10s, yes. 4 straight top 5s. This is a very good track for him. This is going to be telling to me more, not necessarily about Keselowski, but RFK Racing as a whole, because we know what Keselowski can do there. If you put him back in that 2 car. I don't think he's those odds right now. But if RFK close that gap, we'll see what they have. This would be a good track. We'll see, because in the past they haven't won since 2017, a points paying race. And even in 2017, those 2 races were super speedways. So if Keselowski gets a top 5 in that car in this race, that tells you maybe there's something there. Maybe Keselowski can elevate that. Or if Keselowski is not even in the top 10, that tells you the car is bringing him down, and there's a lot of work to do. So I think for this weekend, it's more about RFK and see what Keselowski can do with it.
Yeah, and Buescher doesn't have a good history at all at this track. So that'll also
No.
be a telling tale of whether or not, does he get his first top 15, and Keselowski maybe has a top 5, and then after what happened at Daytona, it's a good start to the season. And then we got to keep an eye on both of them. So, but we'll see. Anything can happen. Again, that's that's why you're better off not really risking a whole lot of money this weekend, no matter what you think. Look, unless you get some good odds on somebody that has a really good or pretty decent, even if you have somebody that qualifies in the top 5 and practices in the top 5, and you could still get 8-1 or 14-1, I might just go all in on that one driver if that's the case.
Yep.
So.
And a good one too for now. And I just wasn't sure he'd win, so I didn't put him in our group. But a really good long shot right now that I even think I'm going to probably when we hang up, put some money on his way. Eric Almirola is 70-1.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's usually a good qualifier. And you're going to look at 2 top 10s and 13 Fontana starts.
Yeah, but those are the last 2.
They're the last 2. Exactly. And he's 70-1.
Yeah.
It's like you throw $2 his way, you're going to come back with 140.
Sure.
So it's worth, because I have a feeling Stuart Haas can qualify. Qualifying's not really ever been their issue. So if he qualifies in the top 5, I highly doubt those odds Saturday night are going to be 70-1. Yeah. Exactly. So right now it's like it's free money. Throw a couple bucks his way, and it'll reap big benefits. And Austin Dillon, Reddick's teammate, I believe he was 40-1, and he's got 3 top 11s in his last 4 at Fontana, 2 straight 10th place results.
Yes.
And you never know. Again, he's usually a very good qualifier there. I think he started pretty good at Fontana in the past. So 40-1 may not stay there Saturday night, depending on where he starts. So, and if he qualifies 20th, I don't think 40-1 is going to change much. It might stay there. So you're better off, kind of like you started the show off, like IndyCar, maybe going a long shot package early and then seeing where the odds stick for everybody else on Saturday. But those are 2 guys I would right now not overlook for those odds right now, because they'll only get better.
All right, Eric, what you got going on now as far as racereviewonline.net for everybody? How are you going to track what's available now and what you're going to do for the rest of the weekend?
Yeah, a lot of previews now for the IndyCar season, which starts this weekend in St. Pete. Main focus will be there. We'll have some NASCAR stuff. Burning questions for both series come out tomorrow. Burning questions specifically for the IndyCar season, not just St. Pete, also tomorrow, like I did for NASCAR last weekend. So a lot of heavy IndyCar stuff. Still everything normal with NASCAR for Fontana. As we're kind of, once the IndyCar weekend gets through, it kind of feels like, all right, now we settle in. Now it's like, okay, the Super Bowl of NASCAR is out of the way. They're 2 weeks in. IndyCar gets started. Granted, they've got 3 weeks off after. You really just start settling in. So trying to get through this week and get, all right, now we've got started. Now let's just settle back in. Yeah. And that's what kind of was going to be up. So we'll have all the recaps, all that kind of stuff up through the weekend.
And what's next week for NASCAR again?
Vegas. Back to Vegas.
Okay. Sounds good. So
that was the main story I do have right now of NASCAR. I wrote Tuesday. It's up. You saw the Busch Clash, 168% TV viewership increase. Daytona, over 8 million, peaked at 10 million watching. It's worked. There's a big growth in momentum. The question is, we've gone west now. And there are 3 big markets. You got back to LA this weekend, Vegas, Phoenix, 3 very large West Coast markets. Can the growth sustain? Can you at least sustain it? Can the numbers at least stay? So that's a big question as we go out west is, does it translate well for the rest? You got it. You don't want to lose it. And we've seen sometimes you go out west, it just goes out there.
No matter
what
time they manipulate these late race starting times to appease the West Coast viewers.
Yep.
So
we'll see.
I hope it works. But if it doesn't work, maybe they should take a change in that again.
Well, and this will tell a lot too, because you saw the clash. It was I think the change. Hey, it's the LA Coliseum that got people intrigued. The Daytona 500 always intrigues people. You see the viewership rise. Now you've got 3 tracks that are. Fontana wasn't there last year because of COVID, but they've been on the schedule since '97. And then Vegas and Phoenix. You're kind of back to what it was last year for a little bit. Sam, is that going to resonate, or are the numbers going to drop a little bit? Because you've seen so much growth the first 2. Do the numbers continue that growth, or is it going to be more flat over these next 3 weeks? That's what I'm curious to see is what can NASCAR do to get people to want to still tune in? That more people have tuned in the last 2 races. keep them or does it drop back? We'll see. You don't know that answer until probably we come back east.
And obviously the racing is going to have a lot to do with it starting on Sunday. So hopefully we'll get good racing. And we had a good finish in the 500, so we'll see if that carries over. So, Eric, appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Appreciate it.